Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where we read stories about people dealing with their insane neighbors, and the stories are super entertaining. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled Neighbor Thinks Anything Left Outside is Fair Game, posted on r/ripe stories by user Stacy Rose. My idiot neighbor across the street assumed that just because we have piles of wood in our yard that they can come over and take what they want. My uncle and I had just got home from another trip to Lowe's to get more wood to rebuild our porch when we noticed the neighbor from across the street dragging some of our wood to his yard. My uncle parked his pickup and got out to confront the neighbor. I sat in the truck a little stunned, but not surprised at all. When I got out, I can hear them both yelling at each other. My uncle was screaming at him to bring our wood back over to our yard, and the stupid jerk said,
"You have it outside, so it's fair game, and I'm gonna burn it in my bonfire."
Which, by the way, you cannot do where I live because there is a burn ban due to the dry weather. My uncle is still screaming at him, telling him that we had paid for that wood and how he had no right to take our wood, to which the neighbor said,
"Anything left outside is fair game."
So I, being the wise ass I was, walked across the street to his yard, grabbed some of his kids' toys and bikes and dragged them to my yard and said, "It's left outside, so it's fair game," to which he started screaming,
"You cannot do that."
I just kept walking with his kids' toys and said, "Exactly, yet you seem to think it's okay to steal our wood that we paid for, so I'm taking these and I think I will burn them." He started stomping towards me, but my uncle blocked his path and said, "You want your kids' toys? Then you give me back my wood or I'm calling the police." And stood there with his hands on his hips, staring down the idiot neighbor. At this time, one of the kids came outside and saw me with his bike and asked me what I was doing, so I kindly said, "Well, your daddy is stealing the wood my uncle and I bought, so I'm taking these toys until we get our wood back." The little boy seemed to understand and then looked at his father and loudly said, "Daddy, give them their wood back, you're being bad again, and I'm gonna tell grandma." I guess this was the key thing to say to get his father to obey or something. The neighbor looked at his son, looked at me and my uncle, then proceeded to drag our wood back across the street, all the while grumbling under his breath. Then the boy said, "Next time, Daddy, I hope they call the policeman and you go to jail," and then asked me if he can get his bike and toys back. I smiled at him and said, I was not gonna keep them anyways. I just wanted your daddy to see what he was doing was wrong. You can get them back, and since you seem to be smarter than your daddy, I will even give you my cookies I got from McDonald's. The little boy beamed at that and said, "See that, Daddy? I'm smarter and I get cookies," and took his toys back across the street, then came back over for his cookies. My uncle patted him on the head and told him that he's a good boy and to keep being good because good behavior gets rewarded. The idiot neighbor looked at my uncle angrily and said,
"Don't leave your stuff outside."
To which my uncle said, "Step on my property one more time and you will be sorry," and then turned around and pointed at the cameras we have on the house and said, "I got you on video stealing our wood. I will hand them over to the police and I will sue your ass. I hope to God that your mother gets custody of those kids before they end up having your bad behavior. People like you don't deserve to raise children," and stormed off into the house, leaving me standing out there with the idiot neighbor. I just stood there smiling at him while he glared at me, then stomped back across the street to his own home. When I got inside, my uncle was on the phone with the idiot neighbor's mother, telling her about everything that just happened, and from what I gathered, she was pissed. She assured my uncle that she would be talking to her son and have it sorted out right away. My uncle continued to tell her about all the problems we always have with her son, and she seemed to understand and told my uncle that she did not raise him like that and does not understand where she went wrong. My uncle told her that she did not do anything wrong and that the one who is at fault is her son. They talked for a while before they hung up and he smiled at me and said, "I don't think we will have a problem with him anymore," and went back outside to gather up the wood we just picked up to put in the pile with the other wood before we start rebuilding our porch tomorrow. We later told my aunt about what happened and she playfully said to me, "Stacy, you've always been the wise ass," and went back to doing what she was doing at the time. I think she was knitting a blanket, but I'm not sure until she finishes it. She just sat there knitting and humming to herself with a peaceful smile on her face. Not a long story, but it was kind of fun. Thank you very much for posting this interesting story, Stacy, and if anyone else is interested in r/neighbors from hell, please let me know in the comments and I will do more episodes. You know, these neighbors from hell stories really remind me of my neighbors in Europe that have treated my family and especially my mother so poorly for years, and nowadays they just pretend nothing happened. I especially hate it when people talk behind your back, and these people were experts at that. And the next one is titled How I Handled a Neighbor from Hell. The year is early to mid 2007. This is how I handled my problem neighbor. Throughout my entire adulthood, I've owned my own home except for a 2-year period when my son was born and shortly after until we bought another house. During my time as a renter in a bigger town, I had very rude neighbors, middle 50s couple, fairly well-to-do, who would spy and sneer and stare constantly. Their adult children and grandkids did it too. They would stare, and once they saw you looking back, they would slowly shake their heads before turning away. They lived to my immediate right. If you so much as coughed outside, they literally seek you out to stare at you for a minute, mutter something under their breath, and then shake their head and turn away. 3 months of this and I had enough of it. Mind you, I am quite big and very imposing and had a long biker beard at the time, and my size did not seem to intimidate them at first. So I decided it would have to be all mental. Since they were always so pissy, I decided the best attack was kindness, mind you, over the top kindness. Whenever I saw either of them looking at me, or both at the same time for that matter, I would walk/run right towards them with a loud, jovial "Hi!" Get very close to them and forcefully initiate small talk. The moment they would try to respond, I would cut them right off and talk over them. Everything they said I would laugh extremely loud at before they were even finished talking, to the point where they would start backing up and I would wave my arms around and act like an idiot. This was an almost daily occurrence for a couple weeks. They seemed to give me more space and were not outside staring at me nearly as often after that, until one day a close friend drove by while I was in my front yard. It took me a second to realize it was him because he was not in his own car, it was a rental because his one was in the shop. The neighbors were on their front porch at the time. He beeped the horn and I looked and saw it was him, and he promptly gave me the middle finger and yelled "F you!" out the window, which is something we often did to each other. Then it hit me, the neighbors saw the whole thing. I sprang into action. I yelled back, "You're dead!" to my friend in the car as he kept going down the street, ran inside, grabbed my shotgun, threw it on the front seat of my truck, and then ran next door and up on the neighbor's porch where they were quite startled. I yelled at them, "Who the F was that? Did you send him? Well, he's a dead man now." They were too frightened to respond. I then ran over, jumped in my truck and lit up the rubber, pulling out of the driveway and flying down the street. I caught up to my friend a little ways down the street and got him to pull over. I shared the story with him about what I had just done. He had been well informed as to what the neighbors were doing and he almost pissed his pants laughing. He's the one who told me what the next step should be, and it went like this. I returned 20 minutes later to the neighbors, still on their porch, staring at me, but trying to make out that they were not, and I pretended I did not notice them. I went inside, got a large beach towel and went outside with it. Knowing they were watching me, I pulled the shotgun out of the truck and started wiping it down with the towel. After clumsily and purposely looking over both shoulders in a fake attempt to check if anyone was watching, I wrapped the gun in the towel and ran around to the back of the house. I brought the shotgun inside and put it away quickly. I grabbed one of my baseball bats and wrapped it in the towel and went into the backyard. I very loudly opened the shed and got a shovel, making quite a racket the whole time. I could see when I came out that they were looking at me from an upstairs window in their house to see what I was doing. I dug a small hole and threw the towel wrapped bat in the hole and promptly buried it. The neighbors never spoke to me or stared at me again. I gotta say, that was a very interesting way of handling your neighbor from hell. And I'm wondering, did you ever have such a neighbor? And if so, did you do anything to get rid of them, or how did you deal with them? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. If we could reach 1000 likes, that would be amazing, because honestly guys, YouTube is currently giving me a very hard time, and I will actually soon make a separate video about this. Unfortunately, it's a very serious issue. Anyway, for now, let's continue to the next story. And the next one is an incredibly interesting and innovative story about a revenge on a neighbor, and it is super satisfying. So it is titled, I got revenge on my neighbor and he still has no idea I even did anything to him. My neighbor from a couple of doors down and I had a long running feud. It all started when his dog came into my backyard and my dog attacked it. I was nearby and able to call my dog off before it got serious, but the other dog had a couple of bite wounds. The neighbor wanted me to pay the vet bill. When he threatened me with a lawsuit, I offered to pay half, even though I owed him nothing. It was his dog that was off the leash and in my yard after all. He declined the offer, took me to small claims court and lost. The trial lasted all of 3 minutes when the judge found in my favor. That set into motion him starting to F with me on a regular basis. My garbage cans would get knocked over every trash day, he would honk his horn and flip me off if he drove by my house. He tried to get my 10-year-old son arrested for riding another neighbor's minibike, never called the cops on their kids, just mine. It was all stupid petty crap, but it was a lot of stupid petty crap and we were growing frustrated and mildly concerned what he might do. We eventually grew tired of it and filed a restraining order against him. We dropped the legal case against him when we received a letter from his lawyer stating that he would refrain from any sort of contact with any of my family for a period of 2 years. Things settled down at that point. But I was not yet satisfied. I had been staying on the high road through all of this, not responding to any of his bullcrap in any way. I had a desire to get revenge but never acted on it, and then one day I hatched my plan of evil genius. I was in the hardware store and I noticed some Japanese beetle traps. These traps are just a plastic bag with a scent pack. The beetles are drawn to the scent, fall in the bag and cannot get out. They also sold refill packages of the scent packs only, 4 per package. My neighbor has a very large rose garden in his front lawn. It is his pride and joy. Japanese beetles love roses. So I bought 4 packages of the refill packs. The scent pack is a waxy substance in a shallow plastic cup. I put the packs in the freezer overnight to allow me to pull the wax out easily. The next morning I woke up at 3 AM. I popped the wax squares out of their cups and put them in a baggie. Then I crept over to my neighbor's house and spread the wax squares in the mulch under his rose garden, covering them from view with a bit of the hardwood mulch. That day was a hot one. By 11 AM it was north of 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I figured the wax had probably melted into the dark mulch. Also by 11 AM, the Japanese beetles were starting to arrive at my neighbor's roses. I went on a bike ride later in the evening and could see a small swarm of them attacking the roses. My neighbor had not yet noticed what was happening. By noon the next day, there was a frickin' cloud of them. There had to be hundreds if not thousands. My neighbor noticed that afternoon I could see him spraying them and spreading 7 powder and waving his arms in the air in frustration. By the 3rd day, there were thousands of the beetles, if not tens of thousands. They were everywhere in his front lawn and wreaking havoc on his roses. By the end of the 4th day, there was nothing left of his rose garden other than a few tattered leaves and the thorny stalks. Those damn scent packs must have drawn every Japanese beetle in for miles around. I had never seen so many in a single place. And that was it. The deed was done and I was satisfied and laughing quietly to myself, but laughing and laughing. And I never told a soul what I did, not even my wife. This was a few years ago and his rose garden is fully recovered now. And it will stay beautiful so long as he keeps being a quiet neighbor. And guys, this reminds me of another story that we have read months ago. And yet, I'm not sure if you would agree with me, but for me this was one of the most genius revenge stories we have read so far. Once again guys, if you have watched until here, you are a super fan anyway, but just to reiterate, YouTube is giving me a lot of trouble currently, so that could mean that they won't show my videos to you anymore. And in order to prevent that, I would suggest clicking that bell button just to assure that you won't miss any of my videos. The last one is also from r/ripe stories, our own subreddit, and is titled The Saga About My Crazy Neighbors from Hell, Mr. ID and His Weird Dream World, posted by user Nikita Akashia. Hello Ripe and everyone else, I'm sorry for not posting so many comments anymore, but you dish out more videos than I can watch. Well, sorry for that. You can put this on YouTube, please do. I need advice in dealing with this dude. Well Nikita, let's see what we can do. So last month I had something called SOCO, Social Competence Training. If you want to know what that is, it is basically some sort of training in how to deal with other people. My caretakers put me on this because me and Mr. ID don't get along all that great. In case you all forgot who that is, Mr. ID is one of my many crazy roommates in my house. The ID stands for
I'm dumb and completely disrespect your personal space.
Anyway, during SOCO, we worked up an older situation from when he was fairly new and did not know how things worked here yet. Spoiler, he still doesn't know. The situation was from late 2019 when we were in the kitchen after dinner and just cleaning up. I think I was on table duty and was just putting back some stuff you put on bread. And this guy comes up behind me very close and kinda stands inside me a bit. I freaked out, I got so scared from this trigger that I just started screaming, ran away a few steps and cried like a baby. I was so distraught from my panic attack that I had to get to my room a bit to calm down. If you find this extreme, know that I was physically abused as a child. The trauma I suffered from that still haunts me to this day, and having creepy people run around getting close and touching me is a really bad trigger to my trauma. So we talked about the situation and were both assigned to sort of write down our thoughts and feelings on the situation. I of course wrote down how I was scared and frightened of getting hurt because of my trauma. Then Mr. ID hits us with this bomb.
I was thinking she wanted to scare and annoy me with the screaming.
I cracked. My face had disbelief written all over it, so in his mind I wanted to scare him. I was trying to make him feel uncomfortable. And he did not like me screaming and thought it was annoying. He did not know what the word panic means, he also did not know what the word trauma meant. So I asked him, Mr. ID, did it ever occur to you you were the cause of the screaming? That it was your actions that led to me getting a panic attack?
I thought you were just being mean and trying to scare me. Grandma never screamed at me.
In my mind, I'm not your grandma, and this is not your effing house. And the best part of it all was that he does not like any people screaming in fear and never considers it his fault. He just does not like screaming people. And it is never his fault because everyone loves him and wants to be his friend. Guys, please, how do I deal with this? This guy lives in a crazy dream world where everyone loves him and wants to be his friend. His parents are apparently the same way and they never try to pull him back to reality. And he won't shut up about his grandma, who has an incredibly stupid name that I won't post for privacy reasons. He just does not believe that he is the one making people uncomfortable. I do ignore him most of the time, but sometimes he just hits us with these bombs that make me wonder why he is not dead or in jail yet. Seriously, this is too stupid to be true, but it is true, sadly. I am losing faith in humanity. And guys, honestly, what would you suggest Nikita to do? I gotta be honest, Nikita, I still have not quite 100% understood your living arrangements because it seems that you cannot really get rid of that guy. Maybe you can get him transferred or something, because if he does trigger certain traumas in you, then the staff at your housing needs to do something about it. Shouldn't the place where you live be some kind of safe space? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it should be. If you guys have any advice for Nikita, please let us know in the comments. And by the way, thank you so much for posting your own stories on r/ripe stories. And with that, we have reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's content, and if you did, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our amazing community. Furthermore, don't forget to go to r/ripestories on Reddit to post your own stories if you want me to read them out in a video. I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow.